whatever you want. You can.
Feel free.
All right. There are just a couple items here on the list that uh, I had sort of on my list. I guess my goals are go through this, make sure everybody sort of understands what the work is, and then um, we get the translate this to whatever's on the Trello board at the end. But we don't have to do that during the call if we don't want to. Do that later. I think from my perspective, that the main priorities are around multi-FS and the georeplication. Those are the two that are sort of top of mind for me. And then it's whatever else is on your list, I think. Remind you, want to just go through this whole thing in order?
Well, a lot of this was just sort of moved out based on the Trello cards we had left over. So if you want to start with
Okay.
multi-FS, I think both Jan and Venki are here. So they've been working on the snapshot replication in the manager, and we've got that leftover pad from a couple CDSs ago when we were talking about how to do the snap mirroring. Let's see if I can get that pulled up, maybe. But then we have an outstanding PR which I think we were looking at, and Zhang's been refreshing um, to do the R stats commit on snapshots.
Right.
So,
The snapshot scheduling, did that already go in, or is that's still an open PR? Remember. Can't hear.
yeah, Jan or oh, Jan's not muted, but we can't hear him. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
How's that?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, so the snap schedule stuff is still in the PR. This was blocked for a little while to get some changes into manager util to have a CephFS connection pool. And since then, I haven't given it too much attention. It's rebased on this manager util PR that was merged by now. PR is here. This generally works, so the basic functionality is there. There's some stuff to do still around the user interface because there were some changes were added based on the RBD scheduled snapshots. We had some coordination there, and we wanted to align the interfaces and the features to a degree. And based on this, most of these features are there, but not nicely exposed to the user yet. But I intend to have that ready to merge in the next couple of weeks. 2 weeks, 2 maybe.
Okay. And then the other prereq is the RStats flush, which is
Yep.
John's working on that. Okay. Okay. And then once those two pieces are in, I haven't looked at this pad since last time. Do we have a plan as far as what to do this sort of for the first iteration? Is it just going to be like, are we just going to start a container running rsync? Or is there going to be like a daemon, like a CephFS mirror daemon or something? Or
I think when we initially talked about this, we figured we will go with rsync to start out with, and then in a second step add CephFS native kind of interface.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that still makes sense because I think there's definitely some primitives missing in CephFS. Like
I'm
we,
wondering
for
if
example, sorry, go ahead.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to have. Are we going to create a new daemon to do this, and it just runs rsync, I guess, or are we going to do something? Is the MDS going to like shell out the rsync, or I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking manager module maybe, but that might also just be doing a bit much on the manager.
Yeah.
There is a lib
Yeah.
rsync. That might be, if you want to roll a daemon, you could maybe use that. So not have to shell out.
Yeah. Good. I imagine that eventually we're going to have the same set of goals as RBD, where like RBD started out with RBD mirror daemon. There was only one of them, and it worked, but it was a bottleneck. But eventually, you had to load balance images across daemons, and you wanted to have n of them. I imagine we'll be in sort of the same situation. So it might make sense to have a mirror daemon.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just not sure we've actually talked about that part of things.
Paige, I think your mic is cut out.
Yeah, I don't have you, Sage. And to be clear, we're right now just talking about mirroring read-only snapshots, right? We're not talking about like an active-active setup or anything, right?
Yeah, this would be disaster recovery. So I think we talked about being able, like having two file systems, and you could mirror them to each other. So you might have two sets of active directories that were each mirrored onto a passive, like the passive backup on the other side. And then if one of them fails, you can swap over.
Would the rsync be aware of the R stats and not traverse to directories that haven't changed?
That's why it wouldn't just be rsync. We need to wrap it up somehow. Yes.
Yeah, because for example, on our file system, doing an rsync would be probably a few days. Even if nothing changed, just traversing hundreds of millions of files would just be prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, so we've got a link in there to a PR, which is actually closed, but I think you can follow that down a breadcrumb trail to the next one, or the next couple of them, to flush the rstats on snapshots to make sure they're accurate and up to date. And then we can just look at those and in a wrapper shell or program around rsync to follow them down and see which specific files we actually need to look at.
With an explicit call to actually do the flush?
Yeah, you do a flush before you start the sync, just to make sure you have the snapshot is fully stabilized.
Yeah, just whatever process would do the sync could do the flush.
Yeah. The one option is to patch rsync itself, to have an option or to automatically detect whether it can use the RC time to ignore whatever and try to trees. And then the feature would be I think for Pacific, we should just start with sort of the simplest thing that's going to work. Should be just creating the actual daemon, doing a rstat flush, using libarsync or rsync, and making the snapshots match up.
Yeah.
Find it from there. Cool. Okay.
One thing I was wondering about that mirroring or syncing of snapshots. I don't think we currently have a way in CephFS to like think to or create a snapshot that isn't created through a snapshot, if that makes sense, right? When we sync, a scheduled snapshot or any snapshot for that matter, we probably want that to be again a snapshot on the remote system, as in immutable. I don't think we have a way of doing that right now, do we?
My assumption was that we could just create the snapshot on the source. Sometime later, the sync daemon wakes up. It syncs it all to the destination, and then when it's done syncing it, it creates a snapshot with the same name as the source. So the C times will probably not match, but the M time and the M time be the same. I guess the C time would also, the birth time would be different. Whatever. It would do the whole sync, and then it would create the snapshot with the same name. So it should basically be identical, and it would be done.
If no one interferes with the directory in the meantime.
Right. Yeah, if you do a failover, then you need to like roll back. And if sync is in process, you need to roll back to the snapshot, which is sort of awkward. But
yeah, I think the presumption is that the standby site is just that it's a standby, not doing anything active.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we really needed to, we could, we could hide the snapshot somewhere, or hide the incoming data until we take the snapshot. But I don't think we need to do that to start with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, it might be nice to have that functionality to like just create a immutable kind of directory, right? That then could be accessed for reads while it's syncing without having the issue of it being changed.
Can you do that with caps though, like where you can change the permissions on the directory to say like it's only read write to the mirror daemon user and everyone else only has read only access to it? Swap it out when it's committed.
Yeah, it could do that.
That's not a thing that our CAPS protocol is really designed to support, I don't think.
I think he means off caps, but I mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. Our auth caps are all additive, so you can grant permissions to access things, but you can't disallow access to something.
Well, yeah, but we could have like a global like snapshot directory, right? So like allow.
Yeah, but I mean, but if you have a user who has allow read write on a file system,
right, there would be everything.
They can read and write everything.
Yep.
We don't have a way to exclude people.
During the clone, I mean, you don't really need anyone but the daemon to have access to it. So it's plausible you could just have special permissions for the daemon, and then you just don't allow other accesses until you're ready to bring the thing live.
Greg's point is we don't have an avenue for that, and that's true. CephFS doesn't really have a way for us to implement that. I think we could hide it in some magic directory that's not normally visible, but we could create a magic directory that is not normally presented. But I think that would be the only thing we could do in the short term that would be sufficiently simple.
I was kind of more thinking like Big Hammer kind of thing, where we just say we have some sort of thing where we just don't allow any access except from the daemon, until we're ready to bring the thing live. Now, how we implement that, I'm not sure. I don't think we would want to use file permissions for that. We'd want to use them.
It doesn't seem like a requirement, I guess.
I think we can live without that if we need to. It's a nice to have.
Yeah. Okay. So this is I think the hairiest, or one of the hairiest parts here is this rstat flush. Is that on Jung's list right now?
We haven't talked about it explicitly in a while.
Well,
Oh,
Jung's
Jung's
here.
here, so you can
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
But I do know he just
I have
updated.
a
Oh, go ahead,
yeah, I
Jung.
have a PR for not Flash, just track if the state dirtied before a given time is already flashed to the root because the flash is too difficult. Need to traverse the tree. That's quite complex.
So you would just like loop and wait until you can tell. Is that what you mean? Like you can tell if it's stable?
I can tell state changes before a given time is already stable. Probably just for user just probably wait a minute to until the state is fully progressed to the root.
Okay. Yeah, I think that works. As long as we can then write a function that will wait. As long as we can block until it's ready. Yeah.
Well, and is there a way we can at least like bound the amount of time it will take? Because, yeah, yeah, I guess it will get done eventually, right? But if
Yeah,
there
as
are
long
no
as
changes, then it's possible it may never complete, right? Or may take a very, very long time to complete.
Yes, it's possible. That's I mean, for example, some this failed or something like that. It will wait a very long time.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Sounds good to me. We move on to the next one.
I don't think I knew of anything more we need to go over. So yes.
All right. So you mentioned something. I asked you about this a couple of weeks ago, Greg, and you mentioned something about auth caps, something, or the cap commands. I'm wondering what's missing on this multi-FS thing.
So yeah, that is, let me see if I can find it. We don't, there's a PR in progress for it that, shoot, I'll find it, that someone's been working on.
Yeah,
Doug, you probably know this.
Yeah, Rishab's been working on it, and I need to. He sent me a note to review it this week, and I haven't hit it yet. But yeah, it's just it's an auth caps issue to restrict the visibility of file systems to users who have auth caps on them, and that one should be just about ready to go. I just need to look over Rishab's latest changes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that
Posted
makes
in the
sense.
chat. And then once that's ready, we just need to
Add more tests.
write a bunch more tests.
Okay.
That's my understanding of where that's at.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are a bunch of tests in it, but yes, I think I'll look
Well,
them over.
no, I mean the multi-FS test, not the
Oh,
auth caps.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I suspect actually that it might be that adding the multi-FS test is easier with the CephADM Tethology module, because then you can just call the Ceph volumes stuff, and it's going to dynamically spin up MVSs, whereas the current Tethology makes it awkward. It's like a statically fixed set of file systems or whatever. So you can just have a thresher that creates 50, that deletes them randomly, blah, 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 whatever you want to do. Maybe hopefully that'll help. Okay. All right. Well, those are the two priorities for me, I guess. How do you want to do the rest of these things?
Well, I know we just copied everything over, but there were a few things that people had added to the list on their own.
I'd really
Sean,
like.
I know.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Doug.
I'd really like to see multi-MDS forward scrub make it. Because right now we can't do that. And that's sort of embarrassing.
Yeah. That seems useful.
Yeah.
Is this something that we've started work on, or is it pieces are in place, but it's just incomplete, or?
So I started working on it a long time ago, and there's still a really big old stale PR for it. It's a lot harder than it seems like to do dynamically. So I think in the short term we should probably take a big hammer approach and freeze all our exports and run the scrub and then unfreeze them all. Because right now that's the biggest issue is when the metadata starts moving around while you're trying to account for it and scrub it. But at the very least, this is a thing that should work, even if it sort of stinks to have to do it this way.
Yeah. Yep.
And right now, I don't think anybody's working on it. But I think it's something that we're really missing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we allow exports while we're scrubbing, it's really hard to keep track of what is and isn't scrubbed, and what's been added or changed. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
I'm just
I think
worried that if we freeze exports, like scrubbing can take a while, and that's a big performance issue.
I wonder if is it helpful to freeze them for like small windows of time, or freeze them only for the parts where you're actually doing the scrub?
Well, I imagine you're trying to.
Yeah,
go ahead, Doug.
You can move things around, right? So you can move something from one subtree to another easily. The contract so far for Scrub has been that everything that existed in the file system and isn't changed is scrubbed. So while it would be, I guess, okay for us not to scrub metadata that moves across subtrees during the operation, I think there's a lot of potential for that to happen and us to miss a whole bunch of metadata.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I forget what I was going to say.
Oh, dang, sorry.
That's all right. I don't think it mattered that much.
Yeah, I can't think of a way that we can have exports running at the same time while we're trying to scrub through things. But maybe there's something I haven't considered. It's been a little while since I've looked at it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that being able to scrub across multi-MDSs while freezing all exports is better than not being able to do it at all.
That's my idea on it. But I agree.
It's a baby step then.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with Greg that it's lousy to freeze the export step. Otherwise, it becomes a very complicated task.
Yeah.
I recently checked this code. I think the most complex is come from the order we traverse the tree. Currently, we do the deep first tree traversing. So it's may rest with relay or something else. I think we can do pre-order tree traversing to do for the scrap, which will make these things much simpler. Because we don't need to worry about the other activity of the file system. Just something like a ls/r.
Mm-hmm.
The downside is that we don't fix the R state or flag state. Flag state of the root of file system with the scrap finishes. We need to wait until the change propagate to the root. Just when we travel to Z, we just fix each directory's state or R state. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was part of the
We don't.
reason that we ran at depth first, was to make sure that all the frag stats were correct.
Yeah, that's also very complex. Now I have the PR that track the R state propagation, so it's not. I think it's not a big problem now.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Well, in any case, I think that makes the list. Else. This FS top, it looks like, is working for. I think I followed this.
Thank you. Did you want to talk about that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so there are a couple of PRs. This was actually targeted for Octopus, but couldn't make it. So these PRs have been tested in Tithology, and Patrick has reviewed it a couple of times. So it's close to getting merged. I need to do a rebase and push it. I have done that. I'll push it probably in a couple of days' time. So once that's done, probably needs testing, and if anybody else wants to give a round of review, that would be good. But most of the stuff is there. The pending thing is we need to write a kind of a CLI wrapper or the manager module commands to kind of display it in a top-like format. That's what's missing.
Can the I'm not sure how the RBD top did this, but can we reuse some of that work?
Well,
Or
I
does
think
it
the problem
matter?
the problem is it uses like n curses, right? Whereas the Ceph Python thing is just like sending commands to the manager. It has no like n curses interface where it can then parse the data on the client side and display it.
But it could do it in the Python on the client side, right? It could be implemented in the
Yeah, you'd have to put something on the client inside the Ceph like Python thing to say, well, they're invoking this specific command, so I'm going to swap it out to say go retrieve these stats this way and open up an ncurses window and format it out.
Yep.
So does RBD not do that, and you only have it in the manager, or it does do that, but it's special?
RBD is its own CLI, right? So, and it's a C application, a C++ application, and not a Python thing that just sends monitor or manager commands.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
But yeah, if you put like some type of plugin infrastructure into the Ceph CLI tool where you can like add add-ons, then yes, then you could do something.
Or you can just hack it in there. It already has a bunch of random things that it does that are sort of
Or hack and slash.
awkward. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. What's the, and is this gathering, so this is gathering client metrics. So individual client libCephFS instances are sending metrics to the manager. That's how it's actually working. Or is
Yeah,
it pulling
kind
from
of.
the
No, the clients send it to the MDS, and the MDS forwards it to the aggregates it and forwards it to the manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
The RBD one is different in that it's sampling from the OSD, right? Jason?
Sorry, I said correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So we need the kernel CephFS changes to also send the same metrics to the MDS. Are they always sending them, or is it when somebody is running top, it starts sending extra stuff?
Well, the clients always send it, but the manager module registers a query to the
MDS.
MDS, and then it starts processing and sends it back. So the MDS is kind of aggregating, but only sends it back to the manager when there's a query in place.
Makes sense. Okay. Cool. Okay.
And I think Shubo has patches for this already, right? In the kernel client portion.
Yeah, he sent up the ones to gather all the stats, but we're still waiting on the ones to do to send them to the MDS.
Ah, okay. And I'm sorry to bring this up now, Venki, but have we looked at what this does, or like check the performance implications of this? Because it seems like it could be a lot of messages, or maybe it's a pretty compact representation.
We haven't done any performance tests, but by the way it's designed, the metric aggregation in the MDS uses a different dispatcher, so it doesn't take the MDS log for the most part.
Okay. Well, that definitely helps.
Cool. Cool. Okay.
So before we go down the rest of this list in order, because a lot of it was just copied, I know that Xiang had added the reduced memory copy in Fuse. If you wanted to talk about that, Xiang.
Yeah, I recently checked the Fuse code. The Fuse code. The CephFuse is still linked to the version 2.9 libfuse, and the libfuse is the newest Fuse library version is 3.6. First, we can update the fuse, CephFuse to link to the newest libfuse. Then the fuse has some feature, something like it can do the splice read, splice write for the I/O, for the data I/O and metadata I/O. So we can use it to enable it and to use it to reduce some memory copy in the I/O path. Yeah, that's basically that's about it.
All right. Well, faster reviews is always great.
Yep. Yeah. Ganesha?
I know Varsha's got some PR up to do the exports creation piece, and I think is it Michael Fritsch has a similar piece up for the orchestrator part. They're reworking some of the way that some of the objects are laid out. I know. Anyway, the plan is for them to kind of get those cleaned up and get them merged, and then they're going to do the last little bit to integrate them for the final release. At least the export creation command right now is CephFS NFS export create. I think it should be Ceph NF. I think we should have a top level command for the NFS man. So Ceph NFS, whatever you'd want to do after that. So it's a small thing, but I think that would be good to have it fixed. Yeah. Beyond that, I believe it's more or less ready to go. Again, we do need to stress when we hand this off to people that this is for casual access. It's not going to be high performance. That's about all I know about it at this point. So.
But it should be robust, right? This is scale out with that.
It'll have multiple. You can do multiple clustered heads, and it's using all the Rados Gray stuff that I put together a year or so ago. So yeah, it should work. One of the things that I'm having to kind of push back on is that like RGW wants to use a lot of Ganesha's caching, but libCephFS we really don't want to do that because we can't respond to the cache pressure as easily. So we want to make sure that we disable as much of Ganesha's caching as we can. Let libCephFS do most of that. So we have to. So sharing a daemon between RGW and Fasal Ceph right now is going to be kind of hard to do because some of the parameters we need to set are global. But I think that's something we could eventually clean up. I need to get with the Ganesha guys and talk to them about what to do.
Okay. Yeah. But the orchestrator interface makes it really easy to start these sets of daemons, so I'm not sure it matters. Like, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't make a big difference. I mean, there's probably some memory savings we could do and stuff, by consolidating the two in the same server. But the bulk of it is going to be cached info for the objects themselves that are on the file system, and so or in the in RGW. So I doubt it will make a huge difference.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I think that the next step after this this orchestration NFS stuff goes in is to basically do the RGW variant. Well, but I don't want to complicate it at a time. Do you think if we change this to CephFS NFS to Ceph NFS do you think that this it would be the same set of commands or same type of commands to configure the RGW exports?
Yeah, I would think so. It'd be pretty similar. Yeah, I mean, we might need, like I said, we might need to set some global settings in the daemons differently for RGW. But what we could do is just kind of like if you were creating if your first export is an RGW one, you can't create a Fasal one, Ceph one or a CephFS one in the same daemon, and vice versa, right? So we could just do that limitation for now, and then eventually lift that if we are able to reconcile and allow these things to be shared.
What does the create thing command look like? Do you name the daemon or the?
You have to name the cluster. Hang on a second, I'll pull up Varsha's PR. But yeah, you have to name the cluster. The cluster gets its own name.
Varsha's here; she can just explain it.
Like that.
The CephFS NFS class. The first interface is cluster create command, it requires the cluster ID, which will be the name of the cluster, and number of daemons it will have. So we also have something called a size there. So this is one interface. This just deploys the cluster. And another one is for exports. For now, we have something like this, in which you mention the CephFS name, and binding is the pseudopath, and you want it to be read-only. Then you mention the read-only option and the path and the cluster ID. So this also creates exports for the existing clusters. Yeah, we still have to work on delete and modification of the exports, and also in the clustering part.
Got it. Okay. And what's binding again? Did you say that's the port? No. What's the binding?
That's the pseudopath or the pseudo root in the export.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. For the NFS server. Yeah. Okay.
That does seem pretty bound to like the Ceph file systems involved, though. So I'm not sure if we want to promote it to a top level NFS thing, especially if we're going to add an extra NFS for Ganesha or for RGW.
And it could be there's a variant where you pass it the FS name, and there's one where you pass it the W whatever.
That's what I would envision. That we would just have you would maybe create --type RGW or type file, CephFS or something.
Maybe.
And then we would just create them that way.
Or
is that actually easier for users to digest? I don't know if we want to be like conflating these or not for users. Maybe we do.
Yeah. Do export FS, something like that.
That would work too. I mean, lots of different ways we could do this. I think it kind of comes down to what whoever is going to do the work gets to choose, right? So
yeah,
subject to review.
Yeah.
How's the message routing work for this right now? Does it? I assume it goes to the manager. So
yeah,
is the Ceph CLI just detecting that it's an NFS command and sending it to the manager and skipping the monitors, or does it get forwarded from them? Okay.
Yeah. It's still possible for it to go to the monitor if you're using the Liberatus API directly and you call the mon command instead of the manager command, then it'll go to the monitor and monitor will forward it. But that's arguably an abuse of the Liberatus API. It's just not a very friendly API. So, but yeah, it's fine. It goes to the manager normally. Okay. Well, I like this one here. I like the idea of getting rid of the FS part and then just making the export command be a little bit FS specific so that we can slot in HW. But yeah, if somebody has a better idea, that works too. I think my only concern would be that maybe this cluster ID part should be required instead of optional.
It should be required. I can't. There's really no way you can do that without. It would need to be, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, for the cluster ID part, it was like if there's a single cluster, then we can call CephAdam to tell us what is the cluster available and then use it. Otherwise, user has to provide it.
Yeah, I think it'd be simpler just to require them to name it. Then we make sure there's like a Ceph NFS plus OS.
What happens if you have two, right? Step Adam can't tell you. So I think that would be less confusing too.
I think it's not worth implementing the code that tries to auto-detect the one case.
Yeah, if people aren't worried about scaling it to multiple clusters, they're probably using the dashboard at this point. So
okay. Well, I just want to throw out my general hope that somebody tackles this for Samba sort of soon after this, even if it's just the case where there's a single Samba instance and no scale out or HA, just because it'd be awfully convenient to have a set of commands like CephFS, whatever, for all this stuff too.
I'd probably prefer CephSMB export, but yeah,
whatever it is, yeah.
Sort of an old school term at this point. So.
Well,
yeah, but
we could also write it before we decide what to call it.
Yeah, that too, right? but yeah, I mean, the big problem with SMB, I'll just throw this in case people are aware, but the Samba forks on every incoming connection. And so each SMB, so every incoming connection you have coming in is going to get its own Ceph client. And so those will, if you have multiple SMB clients that are treading over the same files, they're going to be revoking each other's caps all over the place, and it really kills performance. So, whether any long-term solution for this thing that's going to perform even reasonably, probably going to be quite a bit of work. We're going to need to roll like maybe a proxy or something.
Yeah. But if we wire up the infrastructure for describing exports and launching the orchestrator APIs or whatever, we could implement it as a kernel mount and a Samba daemon running in the legacy mode or whatever.
Yeah, we could do that.
Well, that
and I think actually
extra
just
hairy though, because it breaks our cap consistency across daemons and stuff.
Yeah. I guess my sense is that just having this for casual use, where it's not highly performant, it's not HA, but just it lets you do it from a single server, is going to have a lot of users. So I'd certainly use it. Anyway.
How many of those users are going to try and access something from Samba and NFS at the same time, though?
Approximately 0 would be my guess.
I wouldn't bet on that.
It's a risky assumption.
Yeah.
Because I think every time I've seen it come up, maybe not on the mailing list, but every time I've seen it come up to a company, then they've wanted multi-protocol access.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody
talked about it. Yeah.
So I can at
maybe
least
the
talk
cluster
from
team
the...
To make that point too, that Ganesh is clustering as well, that we don't have anything that excludes access for other non-NFS clients during the grace period. So if the server goes down, if a node goes down, right, a Ganesh node goes down and comes back up during that reclaim period, someone, another Ceph client can race in and grab caps that were held by the by some client, by some NFS client. So we have a little bit of exposure there too with consistency as well.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that's in whatever release notes we do.
Is that because we never actually did the whole session reclaim thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I guess maybe the cluster team has some valuable experience here, but I always wonder if this is one of those things where everybody talks about it. But but I guess everybody likes to talk about this problem, but I wonder how much it actually ever happens in the real world.
So. It does.
Yeah, we can ask.
The problem is that it's hard to detect.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is that when this happens, it's really hard to detect. You might never notice, right?
Yeah.
But you can mean you get silent data corruption.
Yeah.
And that's kind of nasty. Or do things like you think you held this file lock over, but then the thing crashed and came back, and then someone else silently took that lock and released it while you were gone and changed the file out from under you. Stuff like that. It's pretty gross. It can be really hard to even know that happened.
I had a conversation about this with somebody, and I think they just they release noted it and they tried to prevent people from doing dual protocol access, but I'm pretty sure there were still support cases that came in as a result.
All right.
So at least
I apologize.
for SUSE we have at SUSE within the docs we just have a huge warning, basically saying, yeah, we don't support multi-protocol access.
All right, I think Sage was just saying he has to jump.
Yeah, I have to drop off for a bit. Sorry, I'm going to be a little bit late for the RBD one too, Jason. So I'll join when I can.
But we're almost through this list with our 5 minutes left. So the other things that these are all just copied off of our Trello board at this point, but we have the batch file create and unlink. Jeff and Shang have been working on that. The crate's still not enabled yet. But
well, we've done asynchronous ones, but we're not batching them.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
That's a different matter.
Right. There is
something
some
that
code
would be a nice to have.
for doing batch ops, which I saw in PRs recently, but I haven't looked at it yet, so I have no idea what it is. So that'll be interesting. Okay. And then the lib CephFS async file create and unlink, which yes, is almost done. I think that's actually in my last most recent integration branch, or maybe it'll be our next one. The autoscaler plugin for adding MDSs. I don't think anyone started on that though. Wait, no. I think someone has been working on it. And then these were things that Patrick wanted to do when he gets back, or at least make sure happen before Pacific, and just in the QA suites. We have mechanisms for thrashing the directory fragmentation to turn it up and down, but they're not widely invoked in the tests. So we wanted to just make that just sort of happen randomly across all the work units. And then I think merge the suites together now that more stuff is considered stable and works. And I don't remember what the CephFS shutdown mount thing is. And then we want to get rolling upgrades for the MDSs, because right now you need to go down to one MDS and then do a sort of failover upgrade, and that is unpleasant. Okay, it was Melinda. Excellent. Thank you, whoever pasted that in. Did anyone want to talk about these or anything else? We're technically just supposed to stop in 3 minutes.
So the CephFS shutdown mount, I think, is pretty much not going to happen, because Juvo has actually put together a thing for allowing using network namespaces to simulate network outages. So I think that's probably the route we're going to go. You can probably scratch that one.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was the only reason, if there was something else that Patrick wanted to make happen, but that was probably it. So in which case, yes.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Just knock it off the list. All right. In that case, thanks very much for coming all. Have a good rest of your day. And see you next session or summit.
Thanks, Greg.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.